Donald Trump's deposition was played for the jury, and it was very Trump. And if you like Trump, that's a good thing. But if you don't like Trump, that maybe is not a good thing. And we know we're dealing with a New York jury. So the question is, how are they going to react to the clips? There is a long version of this deposition available, but I've got 4 clips that we dragged out here. This is the first one where previously in this trial, they played a clip of the locker room videotape from back in the prior election, where Trump said you can just grab them by the thing. And they played that video clip, and then they played this as well.
And you say, and again, this has become very famous in this video, I just start kissing them. It's like a magnet, just kiss. I don't even wait. And when you're a star, they let you do it. You can do anything. Grab them by the pussy. You can do anything. That's what you said, correct?
Well, historically, that's true with stars.
It's true with stars that they can grab women by the pussy?
Well, that's what it's. If you look over the last million years, I guess that's been largely true. Not always, but largely true. Unfortunately or fortunately.
And you consider yourself to be a star?
I think you can say that, yeah.
And now you said before, a couple of minutes ago, that this was just locker room talk.
Locker room talk.
And so does that mean you didn't really mean it?
No, it's locker room talk. I don't know. It's just the way people talk.
So if you separate these statements out, doesn't look great, right? He says that about women, and they're alleging literally, like, the reason why this is so bad is because they take that language and it matches E.Jean Carroll's testimony. She said this essentially, right? And so you got to imagine yourselves, if you're creating litigation to go take out Trump, one of the best ways you could do it is just to take things he's already admitted to doing in your worldview and creating a case around that, filling in the gaps with a grab, right? And so he's already on the record of talking about these things. It matches E.Jean Carroll's testimony. So when you take that clip out of context, it sounds like he's supporting or just saying it's a reality. This thing does happen. Now, if you give him the benefit of the doubt, which we're asking ourselves if the jury is going to do, just because he says this thing doesn't mean it actually happened with E.Jean Carroll. He may not have ever even been in the store with her. So it just can be a thing that you say that has nothing to do with E.Jean Carroll. Yeah, maybe it is true. Could be true. Maybe it's 100% true. Maybe Trump can go around and do that, and he's done it without consequence for however many years. But he didn't do it with E.Jean Carroll, and never in a Bergdorf's in a dressing room that she made up from a Law and Order SVU episode. So one thing has got nothing to do with the other in theory. But when you stack all of these things up one after the other, then they start to look bad, especially if the jury is already going to be predisposed and disinclined to like you. Now, for other people on the outside who know the full context of this, who understand that the 2 witnesses, Lisa Birnbach and Carol Martin, both felt like weak witnesses, largely because they were removed from any follow-up. They got a weird phone call. Nobody did anything about it. E.Jean Carroll had this weird fascination with Trump. She kept watching The Apprentice. She kept posting about him on Facebook. There's a whole list of things, but the jury doesn't hear all those things. We do. We get to see what, who is funding this litigation and how George Conway set up the meeting with Roberta Kaplan. The whole thing's funded by Reid Hoffman. We get to hear all of that, but they don't get to hear any of this. So this statement is going, even though it has really nothing to do in Trump's mind with anything that ever happened in reality, it fits the exact narrative that E.Jean Carroll is saying. In fact, that's part of her direct testimony. It all started with the hands. So it's not good, right? It's not good. I don't think it's going to be good for the jury. Now, there's a little bit of this comes back to just locker room talk, which I think is the better defense of the Hollywood tape, is to just, no, it's just locker room talk, right? This is not something that actually happens. We don't actually go around and grab women by the things. It's just locker room talk, right? Doubling down on that answer would have been a better answer, but he, I think, can make the argument that minutes ago, right? She even asks, minutes ago, that was just locker room talk. And he says, yeah, I mean, it's just how people talk. It's just kind of a thing, So it does kind of overlap or bring in his prior statement in the protection of just being locker room talk. But it's still, by itself, I think, a difficult statement, and the jury may not make those connections. Let's listen to it again.
You consider yourself to be a star?
I think you can say that, yeah.
And now you said before, a couple of minutes ago, that this was just locker room talk.
It's locker room talk.
And so does that mean that you didn't really mean it?
No, it's locker room talk. I don't know. It's just the way people talk.
So we'll see what the jury does with that. Again, don't know why that has anything to do with E.Jean Carroll, other than that's just E.Jean Carroll's testimony. Okay, so it's he said, she said. She said it happened in a store. She called a couple people to say something happened. A lot of other, that's basically it, right? No hard evidence, no videotapes, no personal shoppers there. We had no receipts. We don't know whether they got a calendar date from Trump, from Trump's schedule. I don't know if they subpoenaed his schedule and showed him at Bergdorf's. No surveillance footage, right? The list goes on and on. So it's E.Jean Carroll's word plus a couple phone calls, and Donald Trump's word, plus an absence of evidence because he doesn't have anything to show that he wasn't a place that he wasn't, because he doesn't even have a date. We don't know what date, time this occurred. So very difficult for him to provide evidence to prove he didn't do a thing that he didn't do when you don't know when it happened. But that's what they're demanding. Now, another interesting clip here was when Trump said, she's not even my choice. And he points over to Roberta Kaplan and he says, hey, you're not either.
Say, oh, I was with Donald Trump in 1980.
Nothing changes.
I was sitting
Nothing
with him on
changes.
an airplane, and he went after me on the plane. Yeah, I'm going to go after. Believe me, she would not be my first choice, that I can tell you. Man. You don't know. That would not be my first choice.
When you said in that video that Ms. Leeds would not be your first choice, you were referring to her physical looks, correct?
Just the overall. Not. I look at her. I see her. I hear what she says. Whatever. You wouldn't be a choice of mine either, to be honest with you. I hope you're not insulted. I would not, under any circumstances, have any interest in. I'm honest when I say it. I would not have any interest in.
So it's an interesting defense strategy, but it is a defense strategy. It's not even, wouldn't even go near her, right? There's no reason for him to even be around her or even in the proximity of her in any way, shape, or form. And also, Roberta, you're not my type either, all right? And hope you're not offended by that. So, you know, those are fun, funny statements. It's kind of like, man, Trump is giving it back to somebody who's being a real political pain in his butt and throwing elbows back and forth. And so as an outside external observer, it might feel good. It might feel, you know, very satiating. But at the same time, I think a jury looks at it and they go, uh-oh, this is exactly what we thought. We're New Yorkers. We're 80% Democrat as is. And so this just confirms that we are going to vote against the guy. By contrast, the opposite of this is that Trump doesn't care about the verdict on this really at all. It's just another $1 million verdict that he's got to deal with. He's going to appeal it, and he's got his eye on a bigger picture, which in this case is the presidency. So at some level, the question becomes, does Trump, well, I think the question is clear. There is no question about it. The answer is clear. Trump values being Trump and just saying the things that he wants to say and being authentically Trump much more than he will box himself into a frame that his lawyers might want him to be boxed into. And that might mean that he loses litigation, but that's a cost-benefit analysis that he's made, and he decides he's going to be open and truthful in these depositions. Here is another clip. Now, these are fun because Trump is explaining his intention, his position on this. He says the whole thing is a scam and a hoax.
This and that.
There's this ridiculous situation that we're doing right now. It's a big fat hoax. She's a liar and she's a sick person, in my opinion, really sick. Something wrong with her.
Okay. In addition to the Russia hoax, the Ukraine hoax, the Mueller hoax, the lying to FISA hoax, the lying to Congress hoax, and the spying on your campaign hoax, isn't it true that you also referred to the use of mail-in ballots as a hoax?
Yeah, I do. Sure. I do. I think they're very dishonest.
He's changed on this.
Mail-in ballots, very dishonest.
I think now.
And isn't it true that you yourself have voted by mail?
I do. Sometimes I do, but I don't know what happens to it once you give it.
Yeah, so interesting that everything's a hoax and that he's actually flipped on that mail-in ballot position, because I think now he's organizing and developing a mail-in balloting operation, which will be useful in this next election. And so the real question comes down to credibility about E.Jean Carroll, credibility versus Trump. Here's what Trump says about E.Jean.
She actually indicated that she loved it, okay? She loved it. Until commercial break. In fact, I think she said it was sexy, didn't she? It was very sexy to be raped. Didn't she say that?
So, sir, I just want to confirm, it's your testimony that E.Jean Carroll said that she loved being sexually assaulted by you?
Well, based on her interview with Anderson Cooper, I believe that's what took place. We can define that. You'll have to show that. I'm sure you're going to show that. But she was interviewed by Anderson Cooper, and I think she said that rape was sexy, which it's not, by the way. But I think she said that rape was sexy, and she actually said things that were very strange. And then she was a different person when he said, we'll take a break right now. We're going to take a break right now. He didn't like what she was saying.
Commercial.
He was very upset with and then she came back and she was a much different woman in the second half, so to speak.
So the question I'm asking you is, did she say in that interview that she loved being sexually assaulted by you?
Well, she said something to that effect. I mean, you'll have to take a look at the interview yourself. I believe she said rape was sexy. which Anderson Cooper is dying. He's saying, let's get to a commercial break immediately. I think you better watch the interview. I'm sure you have. But
yeah, we have watched the interview. In fact, I have it right over here on the mind map, spotlightlawyer.com, if you want to view some of the stuff at home. It was from day 3 here in this node. We've got this interview from her.
You don't feel like a victim?
I was not thrown on the ground and ravished, which the word rape carries so many sexual connotations. This was not sexual. It hurt.
But I think most people think of rape as it is a violent assault. It is not.
I think most people think of rape as being sexy.
Let's take a short break.
Think of the fantasies.
We're going to take a quick break. If you can stick around, we'll talk more on the other side.
You're fascinating to talk to.
Cut it. Yeah, so that's what Trump was referencing, and you could see what they were trying to do in that clip. They were trying to get him to say, oh, so you're saying that when you attacked her, you're acknowledging the attack and she loved the attack, you're admitting that? And he said, no, I don't know what she's talking about over there, but she said it's a sexy thing and it's not. And she said, I think people think of rape as being sexy, but I don't think it is. And so, the interview was this deposition was a back and forth between good questions and bad answers to her. I mean, relative to her, he wasn't giving her clear answers. She says, so you're saying this? Well, I don't know. And he'd go off into this tangent. So it's hard to develop a call and a response pattern to any of this. But as always, the question is going to be, what does the jury think about any of it?